Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. My name is Jacqueline Scott, and I am the president of the Union Internationale des Avocats, or UIA. And welcome to what promises to be a very interesting webinar today. It is sponsored by the UIA's Women's Committee, and it is called Women at Work, Challenges and Opportunities. Before we get to talking about the topic that brings us here together, I want to just tell you all a little bit about the UIA and why you should become a member. The UIA has been in existence for almost 100 years and was created as an opportunity to bring together lawyers from around the world after the war. Since its inception in 1927, the UIA has been a leader of what I call the Great Lawyer Nation, developing and training lawyers, offering opportunities for sharing ideas and best practices, and supporting bar associations. And representing thousands of lawyers across 110 countries, the UIA has always been at the forefront defending the independence of lawyers and judges and promoting and defending the rule of law. At the UIA, we have about 40 plus commissions, committees, and working groups that cover every possible area of practice that you might be engaged in: real estate, immigration, family law, tax, estate planning, corporations, et cetera, et cetera. So no matter what your practice area is, you can find like-minded lawyers at the UIA. We hold approximately 25 seminars and training courses each year on all kinds of topics, and our scientific programs are indeed excellent. I learn something every time I attend one. We also have very active committees, such as our Women's Committee, which is sponsoring this webinar. We have an in-house committee, in-house council committee. We have an LGBTQIA+ committee. We have several task forces that address our most pressing issues: client secrecy, monitoring the development of the Convention for the Protection of Lawyers proposed by the European Union. And at the start of my presidency, I started a task force on AI, which is in the process of developing training and guidelines for lawyers on the use of AI. How to use it, when to use it, and when not to use it. As I indicated earlier, one of our most unique and significant aspects of the UIA is its Institute for the Rule of Law, which works tirelessly to defend lawyers in danger around the world and to protect human rights and the rule of law. One of the most rewarding and fulfilling parts of the UIA are the people you will meet when you join. It's a great opportunity, personally and professionally, to develop a strong network of lawyers across the world. It's a great source of referrals for business as well. For example, I recently had a client who needed a lawyer in 7 different countries. So what did I do? I called my connections in the UIA in each one of those countries and hired that UIA member to do the work. Because of this strong network, I knew who to hire, I knew who I could rely on, and my client thought I was brilliant because I could quickly find them a lawyer to help them with their needs. So I hope that each of you will consider joining the UIA and bringing your experience and expertise to our organization. You can join by going to our website, www.uianet.org. We offer special discounts for young lawyers under 35, and we have a very, very wonderful rate of 15 euros to join for law students. So if you know any law students who also would like to benefit from our newsletter, our magazine, and access to very many unlimited and free of charge training sessions as part of our UIA Academy, I invite you to check us out on the web. So Now let's turn to the topic, a very important one, which brings us together today. First, I want to say Happy Equal Pay Day to everyone. Today is March 12th, and in the United States, it is Equal Pay Day, which is the number of additional days into the year that women must work to earn what men did in the previous year in the United States. So you can see we're about 2.5 months behind in terms of equal pay. Equal pay is and has been the holy grail for women for certainly all of my life and beyond. We are always questing for equality and never seem to quite reach it. In 2024, on average, a woman in America earns 84 cents for every dollar a man makes, and women of color receive less than white women. This gender wage gap has remained mostly unchanged over the past 20 years. In 2022, women earned an average of 82% of what men earned, and in 2002, more than 20 years ago, women earned an average of 80% of what men earned. So you see the pay gap doesn't really seem to change. It is more narrow among young workers and larger among older workers for obvious reasons. As women grow older, they're more likely to experience interruptions in the workforce, such as having to take time off for maternity leave or to care for an elderly parent. Men face some of these interruptions, but at a lesser rate. And therefore, older women who may have worked less in years in the same amount of time as men are less likely to be promoted or given raises. And also, it results in some sort of insidious discrimination, because if you've worked less and gotten less money, when it comes time to get Social Security benefits, you will be getting less. And sometimes discrimination against women is in these insidious ways. I know we will hear from Tanya Arshik, who will be discussing one of these issues in Serbia, but it certainly happens in my country, and I suspect in most countries. Occupational segregation really also contributes to the gender pay gap. Although women are likely to receive more likely to receive college degrees than men in 2024, they are also more likely to choose fields that pay less or are more flexible, so that in the event they want to take time off to have children, they can do that. Women were hardest hit, as we know, in the pandemic for the past 3 years, largely because, one, they are primarily responsible for child care and elder care, and two, they are more likely to be employed in the industries that were very hard hit. Education and health, leisure and hospitality, retail, and the wholesale trade. So there are some potential solutions to the problem of discrimination and the gender pay gap, and I'm looking to our experts on this panel to share with us their assessments of the situations in their respective countries, and perhaps together we can come up with some solutions which may help us move the ball forward towards equal pay. So with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Elisabeth Sioufi, who is the president of our Women's Committee, and she will start us off on this lovely and exciting webinar. Elisabeth?
Thank you so much, Jackie, and thank you for giving us this information about the situation in the United States regarding the wage gap between men and women, which is a discrimination against women. And maybe now I think that this exists everywhere. What we need now is to have the way to address this situation, and with our speakers, maybe we will get, as you said, some efficient ideas to go further and forward in improving situation of women in the workplace. So thank you so much for that. And as you said today, we have this webinar organized by the Women's Committee of the Union Internationale des Avocats on the occasion of International Women's Day, which is celebrated every year on March 8th. International Women's Day is a day of a great importance. It's a day of a great importance because it gives us the opportunity to pay tribute to women all over the world. But also it's very important because we have the opportunity to assess the progress made in promoting women's rights and strengthening their protection, to discuss the challenges, barriers, and obstacles that women must still face and struggle to overcome, and also to tackle the issues that are affecting their security and well-being, particularly violence against them. Of course, we will have to identify also the efficient ways to address them. And Women's International Day for the Women's Committee of the Union Internationale des Avocats is a very important day because on that day we celebrate the anniversary of the proclamation of the Charter of Fundamental Principles on Access to Justice for Women Victims of Violence that we proclaimed in Paris on March 8 in 2022. That was a very important date for us, and this year we celebrate the second anniversary, and we're very happy that 23 of the collective members of the UIA, bar associations and law associations have already signed this charter, and we're working with them on implementing the articles of the charter, which is helping women victims of violence, all kinds, all forms of violence, to get access to justice. Access to justice being one of the most efficient way to put an end to violence against women. And this charter aims to provide women with a legal representation that can help them throughout the proceedings and give them all the information they need about their rights, so they can go through this situation and continue with their lives after having this problem with violence. What we wanted to say also with this charter is that no woman everywhere in the world should be any more victim of violence. We are here as lawyers, as bar associations, to help all women all over the world to have access to justice, but also to combat and to put an end to violence against women. So today we have a specific aspect of the situation concerning women, and maybe sometimes this is a form of violence. When we talk about discrimination in the workplace, it's one kind of violence against women. Violence is not only physical violence, it can have other forms. So not being equal in or having equal pay and equal wages, this is a kind of discrimination, and discrimination is a kind of violence against women and a violation to their rights. So today we will talk about, as you said, Jackie, women at work. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities? And to talk about it, we have 5 speakers from different countries, which will help us to get a clear idea about what's happening everywhere, and to identify the problems, and then the recommendations, to have the recommendations of our speakers in order, as you said, to follow up on this recommendation and issue guidelines or maybe some other document helping in improving situation of women at work, whatever kind of work we are doing. So to start, we have the pleasure of welcoming Nathalie Subilia. She will be our first speaker. She's a Swiss lawyer, registered at the Geneva Bar and certified specialist of the Swiss Bar Association in labor law. In parallel of her activity of lawyer, she has been elected as conciliator judge before the Geneva Labor Court. She's also the vice president of the Labor Law Commission in the Union Internationale des Avocats and the representative of the Union Internationale des Avocats before the International Labor Organization. So to say that she has a lot of information and experience regarding labor and maybe mainly regarding women at work. Women at work under a Swiss law perspective will be the main topic that she will talk about. She will speak in French, but you can follow on the screen her presentation in English also. Natalie, thank you a lot for being with us today. We are really anxious to hear what you are going to say. We need to know what's happening under the Swiss law, what is the protection given to women at work under the Swiss law, and what are your recommendations to improve the situation in Switzerland, but also everywhere else. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Bonjour à tous. Hi, everybody. So I'm gonna share my presentation, and I'm gonna start in French. OK. Donc, comme cela vous a été indiqué, je vais vous parler des femmes au travail au regard du droit suisse et de la législation suisse. À titre préalable, ce que je souhaitais indiquer, c'est que le droit suisse du travail est un droit qui est extrêmement libéral, où la liberté contractuelle prévaut. Il existe très peu de réglementation en matière de droit du travail en Suisse, et la femme est très peu représentée, est très peu protégée, pardon. Je vais dans un premier temps brièvement faire un état des lieux de l'égalité salariale en Suisse. Ensuite, je vous parlerai de la loi fédérale sur l'égalité entre hommes et femmes, qui est une loi qui s'applique dans le domaine du droit du travail et principalement la femme au travail, même si l'homme peut également s'en prévaloir. Je parlerai un tout petit peu de la parentalité et des conditions de la femme au regard de sa maternité dans les cas de relations de travail avant de conclure ma présentation. Alors, en termes d'égalité salariale, on constatera qu'en Europe, les écarts salariaux sont encore très importants puisqu'ils vont entre 5 et 20%, la moyenne étant de 16%. La Suisse, dans ce domaine, est un très mauvais élève puisque, comme vous le voyez sur la courbe qui vous est représentée, la Suisse, il y a 20% d'écart salarial entre un homme et une femme. Donc, effectivement, c'est plus ou moins aussi aujourd'hui qu'une femme commence à percevoir le même salaire qu'un homme pour l'année à venir. Cet écart existe tant dans le domaine public, au sein des autorités étatiques, que dans le domaine privé, même s'il est bien plus important quand même dans le domaine privé. Et cet écart reste inexplicable puisqu'il existe, quelles que soient les professions, quel que soit le secteur d'activité, la formation ou alors la position de la personne. Pour trouver des solutions face à ces inégalités entre hommes et femmes au travail, le législateur suisse a adopté une loi en 1995 déjà, donc il y a presque 30 ans, qui est la loi fédérale sur l'égalité entre les hommes et la femme. Elle est entrée en vigueur en 1996 et elle a en fait pour but d'obtenir une égalité dans les faits et plus seulement une égalité de par la loi. Donc, en fait, elle a pour but de concrétiser une interdiction de discriminer l'homme ou la femme. Elle prévoit plusieurs mécanismes puisqu'elle a pour but de faciliter l'accès à la justice aux personnes qui sont victimes de discrimination liée au sexe. Donc, tant un homme qu'une femme peuvent se prévaloir de cette loi devant les tribunaux dans le cadre des relations du travail. Mais il faut savoir que cette loi a aussi donné l'autorisation aux associations qui ont une tâche de promouvoir l'égalité entre hommes et femmes ou de défendre les intérêts, puisqu'elles aussi peuvent se prévaloir de cette loi devant les juridictions. Cette loi, en fait, a été mise en place pour faciliter l'égalité. Et puis, son but est effectivement de pouvoir saisir les tribunaux pour faire interdire une discrimination à venir, pour la faire cesser si elle existe encore, ou encore pour la faire constater si elle est terminée. Elle a mis en place une procédure qui est facilitée parce qu'il ne faut pas prouver la discrimination, il suffit tout simplement de la rendre vraisemblable. Donc, la discrimination va être présumée une fois que la personne s'en prévaut, ce qui est une très grande différence en matière de droit suisse. Cette discrimination, la personne qui s'en prévaut la fait valoir devant les juridictions de droit du travail, puisqu'elle s'applique que devant les juridictions de droit du travail, et elle pourra porter sur la discrimination à raison de l'attribution des tâches qui sera confiée à la personne qui est victime de la discrimination, à l'aménagement de ses conditions de travail, à sa rémunération, à la formation qui lui sera octroyée, à la promotion ou encore à la résiliation des rapports de travail. La personne qui souhaite se prévaloir de cette loi peut également faire valoir une discrimination à l'embauche. Ça veut dire que si un candidat a postulé pour un poste en particulier et qui n'a pas été sélectionné pour le poste, il pourra se prévaloir de cette loi. On pensera notamment au cas, par exemple, d'un homme qui postule pour un poste de sage-femme qui ne sera pas retenu au motif qu'il a été précisément un homme. Cette loi a aussi pour conséquence que malheureusement, 30 ans après son entrée en vigueur, elle est encore très peu utilisée. C'est une loi qui n'est pas, enfin, ce sont des dispositions légales dont les parties qui souhaitent s'en prévaloir n'invoquent jamais seules. Il faut savoir que c'est un peu une loi annexe en fait. On a eu très peu de décisions des tribunaux et cantonaux et même du tribunal fédéral suisse en la matière. Et très souvent, malheureusement, et ça je le déplore quelque peu, il y a très peu de chances de succès quand on se prévaut de cette loi devant les tribunaux. Elle a aussi pour conséquence que le tribunal siège d'une manière différente qu'un tribunal ordinaire, c'est-à-dire qu'il est dans une composition égalitaire, à savoir qu'il y a autant d'hommes que de femmes parmi les juges, alors que dans la pratique, on peut se retrouver devant une composition d'un tribunal de droit du travail qui est composé exclusivement d'hommes ou exclusivement de femmes. Là, les tribunaux devront veiller à respecter l'égalité parfaite. Cette loi prévoit également une disposition qui vise à lutter contre le harcèlement sexuel. Et cette disposition vient s'appliquer en sus des dispositions pénales, ce qui permet à la personne victime de harcèlement sexuel sur son lieu de travail de s'en prévaloir également devant les tribunaux civils et pas uniquement devant les tribunaux pénaux. Comme je le disais en tout début, c'est vrai que le droit suisse est un droit qui est libéral, où il y a très peu de législation en matière de droit du travail. La femme est très peu protégée, ce qui a certaines conséquences pour la femme au travail, puisque effectivement, il apparaît très régulièrement qu'ensuite d'un congé maternité, une femme qui revient sur son lieu de travail peut être licenciée, et pour ce faire, il y a très peu de moyens de contester, même si aujourd'hui le tribunal fédéral a considéré qu'un licenciement après un retour de congé maternité pouvait être considéré abusif, et encore sous certaines réserves, parce que si l'employeur avait des bonnes raisons de licencier la personne, cela restera encore tout à fait relatif. La femme qui est enceinte a la seule protection de ne pas pouvoir se faire licencier tout au long de sa grossesse, mais également dans les 16 semaines qui suivent son accouchement. À la différence d'autres pays, et là je pense en particulier aux pays nordiques, la Suisse n'est pas du tout généreuse en termes de congé maternité, puisque la femme dispose de 14 semaines de congé maternité après la naissance de l'enfant. Alors, elle a le droit effectivement à son salaire pendant ces 14 semaines, mais elle n'aura que 80% de son salaire, étant précisé que c'est plafonné à un montant maximal. La Suisse ne connaît pas le principe du congé parental, mais elle a toutefois essayé, pour s'aligner par rapport aux autres législations européennes, d'adopter il y a seulement 2 ans un congé qui est le congé paternité, et qui consiste à octroyer 2 semaines, donc vraiment 14 jours de congé au père d'un nouveau-né, qu'il peut prendre soit sous forme de 2 semaines consécutives, soit 14 jours comme il le souhaite dans les 6 mois qui suivent la naissance de l'enfant. J'aimerais préciser que ce congé paternité ne s'applique qu'au père, et c'est là où ça peut poser un autre problème en termes de discrimination aussi à raison du sexe, puisque le congé paternité est intrinsèquement lié au congé maternité, à savoir à la mère qui a porté l'enfant. En d'autres termes, si l'enfant a des parents homosexuels de sexe féminin, la deuxième mère, entre guillemets, pourra bénéficier du congé paternité de 2 semaines. En revanche, si l'enfant a 2 pères et que c'est un enfant donc forcément qui est adopté, aucun des 2 pères ne pourra bénéficier ni du congé paternité ni du congé maternité. Enfin, fort heureusement, depuis 2 ans également, parce qu'il y a eu quelques petites modifications législatives à cet égard en Suisse ces dernières années, La Suisse a adopté un congé adoption qui peut s'appliquer effectivement dans le cadre des couples homosexuels de sexe masculin où les parents peuvent bénéficier de 2 semaines de congé. Mais c'est les seuls droits qu'une femme peut avoir dans le cadre des relations de travail. Alors voilà, donc aujourd'hui, comme je l'expliquais au début, il y a encore un écart qui est très important en termes de différence salariale en Suisse. Cet écart est inexpliqué. On a souhaité adopter cette loi sur l'égalité entre femmes et hommes il y a près de 30 ans. Malheureusement, on constate qu'elle est peu utilisée, elle est très peu invoquée devant les tribunaux. Moi-même qui siège comme juge conciliatrice devant les juridictions des prud'hommes à Genève, je dois voir approximativement au grand maximum 5 ou 6 cas par année. Donc, ça ne fait pas plus qu'une cinquantaine de cas pour le seul canton de Genève. Et que malheureusement, cette loi elle est peu mise en pratique, qu'il y a eu peu de succès, il y a eu peu de décisions qui ont été favorables et qui vraiment établissent qu'il y a une discrimination salariale. Et je constate en tout cas, moi, dans ma pratique du quotidien, qu'on est encore bien loin d'une égalité entre hommes et femmes dans le domaine du droit du travail. Voilà, je vous laisse la parole. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Nathalie, pour cette présentation. Donc, si je comprends bien de ce que tu as de ta présentation, n'est-ce pas? C'est que actuellement, la femme en Suisse, la femme qui travaille en Suisse, n'est pas bien protégée par la loi. La législation actuelle ne la protège pas efficacement.
Non.
Et finalement, c'est le contrat de travail qui la lie à l'employeur qui doit assurer cette protection. Et est-ce que c'est le cas? Est-ce qu'elle peut inclure dans son contrat de travail des clauses qui la protègent, ou bien à ce moment-là, elle ne sera pas employée ou embauchée?
Alors, c'est vrai qu'il peut y avoir des clauses dans le contrat de travail où la femme peut être un peu plus protégée, notamment en termes de maternité, de congé maternité, où il y a effectivement certaines institutions qui prévoient des congés maternité plus longs que ce que prévoit la loi. Il faut savoir aussi que, alors il y a la Suisse, on a une législation fédérale, mais aussi on a ensuite une législation entre chaque État, chaque canton, parce que c'est des cantons en Suisse, qui prévoit des législations qui, des fois, donnent 2 semaines, par exemple, de congé maternité en plus. Mais c'est vrai qu'il n'y a pas de protection spécifique pour la femme dans le domaine du droit du travail. Il y a un peu des protections en matière d'allaitement, mais encore, c'est très restrictif. Et puis, alors, c'est vrai, enfin, et ça, je le vois, et on voit tout dans notre pratique, l'égalité salariale et même les postes qui sont attribués aux femmes en Suisse, les postes à responsabilité, on est encore bien loin d'une égalité entre l'homme et la femme.
D'accord. Donc, c'est déjà là une conclusion à laquelle on peut arriver, et nous en avons déjà parlé à plusieurs reprises dans tous les domaines concernant les femmes, l'importance d'avoir une législation qui protège la femme et ses droits, et donc un cadre juridique protecteur de la femme. Et ça, on en a besoin. Ça n'existe pas partout, et parfois, lorsque ça existe, ce n'est pas bien appliqué.
C'est mal
donc,
appliqué.
déjà...
Honnêtement, je trouve qu'en droit suisse, la loi sur l'égalité, c'est ce que je disais, il y a très peu de cas, et en fait, le ressenti que j'ai et la pratique me le démontre, c'est que peu de gens en fait se prévalent de cette loi sur l'égalité parce que tout le monde se dit ah mais de toute façon la situation est celle-ci, et il y a une sorte d'accommodation du pouvoir, enfin des tribunaux et même des politiques de cette situation que la femme est minorisée. Même si effectivement aujourd'hui on a la journée de la femme et on a toutes ces journées, justement on essaie de la promouvoir. Il y a aussi des lois qui essayent de promouvoir les femmes, notamment dans les conseils d'administration, mais la mise en pratique a de la peine à se faire encore aujourd'hui, et même là, en l'occurrence, après 30 ans d'entrée en vigueur de cette loi.
Voilà. Merci beaucoup, Nathalie.
Merci à vous.
Oui, tu vas devoir quitter maintenant,
Voilà,
n'est-ce pas?
malheureusement, je dois quitter, mais je dois partir en audience.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye, everybody.
Merci.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Bye.
So now our next speaker, notre prochain orateur, c'est Michael Rees. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. And I would like to say that even if we are a women's committee, it's not a committee for women only. We have many members who are men, and we need to have men with us because it's by working together in partnership, women and men, that you can promote women's rights and strengthen the protection of their rights. So thank you so much for being with us. Michael Rees he's joining us from the United States. He's the vice president of the Agri-Food Law Commission in the Union Internationale des Avocats. He's also the founder and managing partner of Reeves LLP, a law firm based in the United States that specializes in plaintiff class action litigation to protect people from malfeasance and enforce their civil rights. Michael is also an advisory board member of the University of Los Angeles, California Food Law and Policy Center, and is a frequent author and lecturer on food law and class action, both in the United States and across the world. Today, you are going to tackle the challenges facing women farmers in a global approach, and you will suggest some legal and other solutions. It's a very interesting topic because this is one of the kind of work where women are sometimes exploited. So how we can protect women when we are talking about women farmers and women in the agri-food law work, who are working in the agri-food sector. The floor is yours, Michael, and thank you so much again for being with us.
Great. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, great. And I need to start off and thanking the UIA for the opportunity to speak. It's a wonderful organization. I echo what I'll say President Scott, because I think it's important to note that Jackie is the president of our organization. Said earlier, it's a wonderful organization. Anybody who's not a member should become a member. I also want to thank you, Elisabeth, for the opportunity, as well as Natalie for her great presentation, which I'll talk about a little bit as well. And I think also for Colette, who has been fantastic in organizing this, as well as the other sessions. You know, we talk about women's rights. It's not only an issue for women, it's an issue for everybody. It's an issue for humanity. And that's why it's so important that we have equality. I look fondly to the day when in the United States we have a president in the White House, which may solve some of the issues that we have in the United States, which I'll talk about. But I'm going to share my screen now so I can give my presentation. Okay, so I'm going to speak today about the challenges facing particularly women farmers. It's really a global problem, and I'm going to talk about some suggested legal and other solutions. This presentation is going to be kind of three parts. First is the importance of women in farming, the challenges facing the female farmer, and then again, the suggested legal and other solutions. And I think the last is very interesting because as lawyers, we can only do so much. And we can have the laws change. We can have the legislatures create laws that require equality. But really, you need both enforcement at the governmental level. And I think the more we have women empowered in positions to make sure that enforcement at the governmental level is in effect is of vital importance, because if you just have a law sitting on the books and it's not being enforced, might as well not be a law there at all. But we also need to change social and cultural expectations because, as we'll talk about in this presentation, even if you have laws on the books, there's unequal bargaining power, and even if you have laws, it's not really going to change that. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about this issue. So let's talk about the importance of the female farmer, women in farming. Historically, women have made up 43% of the global agricultural labor force. That's an incredible amount if you really think about it. Yet women face significant discrimination in several different areas when it comes to agriculture. Equality in pay, which we've already talked about how important that is, having equal pay, and how really disappointing in the 21st century. We still have such great lack of equality in pay, even in countries like the United States and Switzerland. And as you can expect, even though it's approximately 80 to 84% in these countries which pride themselves on equality, it's even worse in other parts of the world. Equal opportunity to own land and protect land rights. That's another important area, which we'll talk about a little today. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's another area where women are discriminated against. In some parts of the world, they can't even own land. And in other parts of the world, even though they're able to own land, that land ownership, those land ownership rights are not enforced. And then also equal access to technology, both high technology such as internet access, but also just tractors, other equipment that is used and so vital in farming, being able to produce large yields of crops, which of course helps with the first issue, which is equal pay. I would note this is women's equality in the agricultural world is of significant importance, particularly in the modern age where we're facing issues of hunger due to climate change, due to mass migration. The world is in constant flux, and it seems that it's rapidly becoming even more and more of an issue. And because of this, the United Nations, and specifically the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, which I'll refer to the FAO, has really focused on this and recently issued a paper from Rome back in August of 2023. It's vital reading. I have the link here in the slides, and if anybody has any questions, I've also included my email. I'm happy to share these papers with you. You can find them also fairly readily on the internet, but it's a fantastic report about the discrimination that women are facing as farmers in the agricultural world, and also many suggested solutions. So here's the good news. The good news is that much of the world, the face of farming is female. Globally, the majority of economically active women in the least developed countries work in agriculture. So the good thing about farming is it does present an opportunity for women to earn money, to be able to raise families, to support themselves. So that's the good news. And I would note that agri-food systems are a very important source of livelihood for women in many places, and some places more than men. In sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, 66% of women's employment is in agri-food systems, compared to 60% of men's employment. In Southern Asia, 71% of women in the labor force are in agri-food systems. That's compared to 47% of men. So you can see how important, from a global perspective, protecting women's rights, giving them equal rights in the agri-food systems is of paramount importance, because women make up such a large portion of the agri-food systems across the world. But disturbingly, women still face a number of issues. And I've already talked about this, and Jackie and Natalie talked about this. Pay discrimination. It's of paramount importance that women are paid equally for the work that they do. Inequality of land ownership. This is also something of paramount importance, particularly for female farmers, because if you don't own the land that you're farming, you can easily be exploited. And then the unequal access to mechanized equipment and other agricultural technology, including technology such as improved seeds, as we talked about, tractors and other farming equipment, but also, as it becomes more and more important, equal access to the internet and that type of high technology, which farmers are using more and more these days. So let's start with the first problem, which may be the easiest to identify: pay discrimination. Women engaged in wage employment agriculture earn 82 cents for every dollar that men earn. This is a disturbing issue. And it should be something that the laws could easily address by requiring equal pay in every single country in the world. Unfortunately, many countries are lacking in that. And as we even note in places like the United States, where at least the concept of equal pay is touted, there's still great pay discrimination. These laws not only need to be enacted, they need to be enforced. Then there's also the importance of land ownership. For rural women and men, land ownership is often the most important. Evidence shows that strong land tenure is strongly associated with higher levels of investment and productivity in agriculture, and also results in higher incomes and greater economic well-being, which I think we can all understand. The more economic well-being that women have, the more chance they have to exercise their rights, to be a powerful force, and to get equality in the world. But the world is lacking significantly in both legal rights and cultural norms in giving women equal access to not only land ownership, but also protection of that land ownership. So this goes again to, we need to have the laws that give equal land ownership rights to women, but those laws also need to be enforced. So arguably the biggest roadblock, in fact, is land rights. And I think for as much as pay discrimination is important, because of oftentimes the way that people make money in being farmers, it's not so much you're going to an employer and seeking equal pay, though there are a lot of employers in the agri-food system. But if you're focusing on farmers specifically, and these are oftentimes small farmers, they're not working for a company, land ownership is of paramount importance. And there are parts of the world, believe it or not, in the 21st century where women still cannot legally own or control land. You also see, even though women can legally own land, oftentimes if there's a married couple that's farming, only the man will register the name in his name, which means that if the husband dies, the woman doesn't have the equal access to land, may have no access to the land. And there are countries now trying to make sure that if there's registration of land for a married couple, both the man and the woman register that land. Particularly for farmers, this is important, but you can appreciate for any type of property. And those are laws that are at least trying to address the issue of inequality of land ownership, but they also need to be enforced. Next is the importance of access to technology. In the modern age, farming has advanced tremendously, and to be able to compete, farmers need access to technology. This is not just talking about farmers, but it's talking about improved seeds. It's talking about access to technology such as the internet, especially in these days of climate change, where farming methods that used to work for hundreds of years are no longer working because the earth is literally heating up as we speak. The problem is women in agriculture have significantly less access than men to these type of technology inputs. As I said, including improved seeds, fertilizer, extension of service and training, and credit. And that's another very important area, because it's not quite the same as pay discrimination, but if banks or other lending institutions are not willing to give women the same access to money, either not lend them as much money or lend them money at higher interest rates, you can understand that's a discriminatory practice which vastly hurts women working the agricultural field. And as a result, hurts all of us. Again, it's not just a women's issue, it's an issue for humanity. So let's talk about some possible legal solutions. We're lawyers here. We like to think that the law can address many of these issues. I think with respect to pay discrimination, that should be the simplest one. Again, in every single country, there should be on the books laws that do not allow for pay discrimination. Women should get equal pay for the work that they do, comparable to men. That in the modern age, that should be no question. And the government need to enforce that. They should bring criminal actions if it's not being done. It needs to be enforced at that level in this day and age. You also need to have laws in the books that give women equal rights for land ownership. And again, I talked about the equal marriage or inheritance of extreme importance. Kenya recently adopted a law that required joint registration of land by men and women. You may need to see that throughout the world. And then also strong contract laws. And this goes to, I think, land ownership, but also the ability to have women bargain at the same equal level as men, getting credit so that they can buy technology, so that they can provide greater yields of crops. Other possible solutions, not only, we like to think, lawyers, that if you get the laws passed, that's enough. But the reality of the world is that that's not the case. And there are organizations such as the FAO that are working very hard to address gender discrimination in the agri-food systems. They're working to convince governments not only to pass the laws, but also to implement these laws and enforce these laws. And at the individual level, the FAO is trying to empower women with both entrepreneurial and business planning skills to make them more independent and capable to participate in the local economy. I also want to just mention too, the World Bank is very involved in this as well. In March of 2019, so just a few years ago, they published a report that reported that women in half the world are still denied land and property rights despite the laws. So again, this goes to the point, we not only need the laws, but we need enforcement of the laws. And the World Bank has started a campaign called Stand for Her Land, which is to convince governments and other entities to not only have these laws on the books, but to pass these laws. If anybody wants more information, I'm happy to share this campaign that's going forward with the World Bank. They're working with Habitat for Humanity to get these laws on the books. And then also, some of these changes must just be done at the cultural level as well. Here's an example of a farmer in the United States who says, I don't face the same restrictions that you might see against women in other parts of the world. She's an 8th generation farmer in Tennessee, but she says because of gender bias, her husband has to handle most of the business, the transactions, the phone calls, because people want to deal with a man instead of a woman. And she says, I guess being a woman, you just have to go above and beyond and prove yourselves. So that's something we all need to reflect upon ourselves. And I don't think this is just a male issue. I think sometimes even women deal with other women in a way that's discriminatory, but not even thinking about it. We need to change those cultural norms and treat all people equally. So inherent gender bias in the economic system regularly limits women's access to credit. That needs to be changed. Again, this is a cultural norm. It may not be something that laws can address, but it's something that if we reflect as human beings and how to treat each other as equal human beings, we can all address. And why is this so important? Again, women's rights is not just a women's issue, it's an issue for humanity. And we are facing a global food crisis right now. This is a very interesting conclusion by the Empowering Female Farmers source that I've been citing. The conclusion is giving females access to the same resources and education as males could increase food production by women up to 30%, which would eliminate hunger for 150 million people. That's the end of my presentation. I thank you so much again to the UIA, Elisabeth, President Scott, Colette, everybody for putting this together. And it's been an honor and privilege to speak today. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael. It was really very interesting. And you see that everywhere women are facing the same problems, the same obstacles, the same barriers. You talked about the bias. This exists everywhere when at work, when women are concerned everywhere. So we have now a clear idea about what's happening for women farmers, but also beyond women farmers, what's happening at work for women. And as you said, we need legislations, we need a change in the law, we need laws that protect women against discrimination at work, but we need also to enforce these laws. We need also to change a change at the cultural level, which is very important. Changing mentalities will help a lot in creating laws that protect women. And this is what we started to work on within the Women's Committee, and we have to go further on this level. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really very interesting. And I would like to say to the people who are, to the participants in this webinar, if you have any question to one of the speakers, you are invited, please, to write it on the Q&A box. And at the end of the presentations, we will ask it to the speaker who's concerned with your question. And then to contact Michael also. In any case, we will have you on the follow-up committee, or working group, which will follow this webinar that we'll create following this webinar. Thank you so much again, Michael.
Merci beaucoup.
Our third speaker now is coming from Serbia, from Vojvodina, Tanya Arsic. She's a lawyer. She's registered at the Bar Association of Vojvodina. She's a lecturer at the Academy of the Bar Association of Vojvodina on administrative law. She's also She has a permit for mediation issued by the Ministry of Justice of the Republic of Serbia. She is the president of the Women Lawyers Club, Katarina Lengold Marinkovic. She will talk about it later, at the Bar Association of Vojvodina. And she is a member of the Women Committee of the UIA, member of the Committee on Human Rights of the UIA, and counselor to the president of the UIA, Jacqueline Scott. I'm very happy, very glad to welcome you also, Tanya, and to welcome your colleagues from the Vojvodina Bar Association who are attending this seminar, this webinar with us. And I would like to thank again the Vojvodina Bar Association for joining our charter on fundamental principle of concerning access to justice for women victims of violence. Thank you so much for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Hello again to everyone and to our registered colleagues. And now I'll put my presentation on the screen. Just a moment. Okay. Just a few seconds. As you said, Elisabeth, we have a women's club named by Katarina Lengold Marinkovic. My presentation and speech is about past times and today. It doesn't start with us. There are many brave colleagues before us, and I don't want to shadow of oblivion to cover what they've done before us. Because of that, I will tell you something about history of the Vojvodina Bar Association, and then it was Yugoslavia Bar Association. We were a Yugoslavia kingdom of Yugoslavia at that time. Katarina Lengold was first lawyer that was passed the bar in 1932. It was a new law in 1929 that allowed women to become attorneys at law. Katarina used that opportunity and she finished law school. And in 1933, she was registered in the Modern Bar Association because we have a new law on the bars. And to be a woman lawyer was especially new. She was married at the time. She studied at Subotica, where she met her husband. Her husband later became a judge, but at that time, women couldn't be judges and didn't have a basic political right to vote. In that time, it was very brave to divorce. It was marriage between attorney at law and a judge, and she dared to divorce. And she was in risk for her good name, because in that time, people use a pejorative word divorcee for women, and that could have harmful effect on her practice. But this is not the only thing that Katarina Lengold did. During the occupation from 1941, our bar was dismissed. She was appointed like a guardian of the bar. And that was a clever move because she was a woman and she didn't stood out, and it was a quiet all that it was until the end of the war when occupators came to bar and asked her to give them all documentation, because when they're leaving, they were burning archives. But Katarina stood in front of that soldiers and rejected to give them what they wanted. It was a very, very brave move, because today we wouldn't have anything to study, because our past will be erased by something like that if occupators were given what I asked for from Katarina. She was very brave, and she was, this is what you see on the screen. This is our register. It's looked like today, it's very, very big book with a picture and details about a lawyer. We have it today, but we have a digital form also. And in fact, all our archive that she saved now is in a state archive of Vojvodina in control environment. You know, we want to keep our papers and archives, and all is digitized now. For that, we can thank Katarina, because this is a picture of all bar association, what you have on screen. And this is everything what I already told you, but I wasn't quick enough to move slides. This is how it looks earlier. President Scott was in a visit in our bar. It doesn't look like that. It's more modern, and it looked beautiful. I hope that someone of you could come to us on our advocacy day and to be our guest. But what is new, we have now a club, a women's club, named after Katarina Marinkovic, and this is first club on Western Balkans. And I don't know that any bar near us has that club. We have to do something about rights of women, and we have to promote the rule of law. Elisabeth earlier told you that we signed a charter, and this is one of the first actions that club done. After that, we wrote our young colleagues, I must say that to you, two Yelenas and one Maria. They wrote objections on law, on maternity leave. It's called law on financing families with the children. Our Swiss colleague had presentation about maternity leave, but we have a completely different problem in Serbia, because our state makes difference between self-employed women and employed women. Attorneys at law, women, we are self-employed, every one of us. Employed women are working in a state or for other people who employ them. And there is something I must tell you before going on that matter. In Serbia, there is a mandatory social insurance. It is health care and pension insurance, and it is mandatory. You must pay to the state. When you pay it to the state, state has to give you something back when you go to the maternity leave. But that was not the case. Because of that, we wrote objections on that law. And I'll tell you about when self-employed women go on maternity leave, there is no years of insurance coverage that counts toward their pension. Besides that, self-employed women receive maternity pay that is below the minimum guaranteed wage in Serbia. That is very, very low. And above that, it is implying that they use different coefficient for maternity pay for self-employed women. When we wrote that objections, we sent it to the Bar Association of Vojvodina, and it was accepted. After that, we sent it to Serbia Bar Association, to the governing board, and governing board accepted objections, and now we will send it to the competent ministry. This is very important for the work of the women, especially women attorneys at law, because they have to think about, they have children, babies, and they have to think about the wage they are given by the states, but they have to pay. It's mandatory. They can choose where their insurance will be. It's only state insurance that is mandatory. This is our club that is doing that work. You can see on the screen. And this discrimination is very odd because we have discrimination between women themselves, self-employed women and women. Who will tell that? It's always other sex or a gender, but now we have between women. Second assignment that club has is to harmonize our criminal code with the Istanbul Convention. Our working place is court too. We represent women where they victims of the violence. This is very, very important that we protect women at court, and Istanbul Convention is talking about consent. But our criminal code has something completely different definition of the rape, and it says that women has to resist, and talking about was it a physical contact, was it penetration or something else, and it's 10 years that we ratified Istanbul Convention and not harmonized our criminal code with that convention. We have to do that. We have to write again objections and ask our government to do that, because women are going through secondary victimization. Because of that, it's very, very hard to prove rape in the court. This is one of our job. Who can tell better than a lawyer what we need to do and how that process in a court are going? We are only one that can feel that women, what are they going through and how many times they have to repeat the same time, and how many, on the end, they don't have any tears when they have to prove that million times in our justice system. Because I think this is our second job we have to do. Now we are going to the this page. What can we do next? Of course, we have to advocating for better representation and portrayal of women in media. This is not only for women. I talked to Jackie yesterday and our colleague Mardi about that, how people see lawyers, how they think about us. It's the same thing for women as the men, but we are in a different position. We have to fight. We have to do more, and we are going through different phases through our career, and we have to address many issues. Violence is one of them, and we have to promote gender equality. If you heard what the Secretary General of United Nations said, equality will be reached in 300 years. Can you imagine that 300 years? We can try to accelerate the process to be at least in 100 years, not 300 years. We have to balance all the roles that women lawyers have in their life. We have to show legislator and our bars that attorneys at law are first on the start. Every start is very hard. Then for women, it came to the motherhood. They have families with children or no children. Anyway, they have more responsibilities. And after that is they're going to phase of menopause. And that is something that we have to address because needs and everything changed through the life. And now we have artificial intelligence. I won't tell you now about that because it's not the theme, but women could be affected more than men because of use of artificial intelligence. Because if women in some phase of their life working on simple jobs, I think that artificial intelligence could replace them in that matter. And now I have to tell you that we have to say no, like Katarina did. It's very powerful word, and make all the difference was made for women in a bar association, where she said, no, I won't give you that papers. Also, we have to say no for the discrimination between self-employed women and employed women. And that word is also needed in process of harmonization with the Istanbul Convention. It is must to write objections and to push our government to harmonize with Istanbul Convention. We must do it again. We must write that again. And now, on the end, I don't want only to say no. I have one big yes. I have one big yes for France, because in the time we have prep session and now our speech, France accepted change of constitution, and right on abortion became right, guaranteed, but by the Constitution of the France. Well done. I support that with all my heart. Well done, France. And that is all I have to tell you. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for your presentation and for the historical information you gave us about the Vojvodina Bar Association and the first woman who was an attorney at law in your country. Once again, you focused in your presentation on the urgent need to amend existing laws in order to strengthen the protection of women and their rights at the workplace. So we need legislation, we have to work on amending that through the Union Internationale des Avocats and with our the collective members of the UIA. Thank you so much. Now we'll go to India to see what's happening there. How is the law empowering women in India? And we listen to Ashu Thakur, who's a solicitor, both from India and the UK. She is the founder of the corporate and commercial law firm Ashu Thakur and Associates in 2009. The firm was awarded the Thomson Reuters Trust Law Innovation Award in 2016 and is recognized and ranked by Legal 500 for 2 consecutive years, 2023 and 2024, in commercial, corporate, and mergers and acquisitions with an India city focus. Ashu serves on the board of the Governing Council of the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is the former honorary secretary of the British business group Mumbai. She's the governing board member of, she's on the governing board of the Union Internationale des Avocats. And she's the deputy chief editor, English language, of the Juriste Internationale, which is the publication of the Union Internationale des Avocats. Ashu, you're joining us from India. You're most welcome. And let's hear about how the law is empowering women in India. Is it doing so? We're listening to you.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. I will share my screen. Hi, can you see that? Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Perfect, great. Thanks at the outset. Thank you, Elisabeth. Thank you, Jackie and Luia, for this amazing opportunity. And I think the Women's Committee is an amazing body to have, which kind of shapes the women, their thoughts, they kind of encourage us to kind of come forward, share our opinions, our views from each country. And it's so enriching to learn so much from so many different countries. And I think great job, Elisabeth. So kudos. So today I'm going to run you through this, the presentation on empowering Indian women. So basically, just a background of where we are. So just giving you an insight of India. So India is one of the oldest civilizations in the world, and it has a rich cultural heritage. We were ruled by United Kingdom, and we were a territory of the United Kingdom. And now we are in the 77th year of our independence. Last year, India surpassed China on being the most populated country in the world. So just giving you an overview down, we have the divide between rural and urban population. We have 36% of the population, which is here, which is the urban population, and the majority of our population is rural, that is 64%. If you look at our gender segregation, we are 48% women and 52% men. Here, the gender lopsided view. So if you look at, this is a short synopsis of the female labor workforce over 15 years. So you will see how the labor force in India has risen from 2017 to now 2023. It has risen from 23.3% to 37%. So yes, we are encouraging women in the workforce, and this is the labor force. Okay, so, and over here, sharing with you the screen, over here, you can see that 64.63% of the women in India are literate, as compared to 81% of men. But if you look at our politics, women hold only 12% seats in the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is the House of Commons. But whereas women hold 46% of seats in the Panchayat Raj. Panchayat Raj is basically the villages. Then 48.5% of the women, but only 27.4% women are in the workforce over here. If you look at the girl-child ratio, we have 918 girls for 1,000 guys, 1,000 boys. And initially, when women start out as kids, they are put into schools and primary schools. So there's 100% attendance. But slowly, as they grow older, there are a lot of school dropouts, maybe because of education cost that rises, parents can't afford it, or they want the girl to work at home and, take care of the family, feed the, younger brothers or siblings, and get into the household chores. So there has been a gradual decrease in the school-going girls. And hence, to encourage girls to come back to school, the government has given free education to women, to the girl child up to the 12th standard, that is like the baccalaureate. This is just giving you an idea of the evolving social status of Indian women. If you look, we got our independence in 1947. Before 1947, in 1831, we had the first Indian feminist movement and the first female teacher to educate girls. And we had our first Indian doctor, female doctor, way back in 1886. We had our first female judge of the High Court in 1959. Our first prime minister, the woman prime minister, was in 1966. In 1966, we also had the first Indian crowned as Miss World. 1997, there was Kalpana Chawla, who went into space. She was an Indian citizen. 2004, we had the first lady Lieutenant General of India. 2014, we had Mary Kom, who won 6 times the gold boxing championship. 2020, we had Avni, who won a gold medal in the Paralympics. And in 2022, as that's the latest you can see, we have the first woman CEO of Chanel, which is a woman. So it is a lot of progress what India has made. Just giving an overview of the SDGs that we are looking at. So SDG 5 is basically about gender equality, ending discrimination or violence against women, eliminating forced marriages, genital mutilation, unpaid care, equal rights for economic resources, promote empowerment of women through technology, adopt, strengthen policies and enforce legislature for gender equality. That's very important, apart from the above one for health and rights. That means adopt and strengthen policies for enforceable legislation. Basically, we need enforceable legislation for gender equality. Just to give you a brief background, way back in 1997, there was a particular case where there was an issue which came up with a lady who went to work as a social worker, and there was a rape against her, and she just went for a social work in some village, and she stopped child marriage over there. The people were so offended against somebody, a woman coming and stopping child marriage, so it was a horrible case of rape against her way back in 97. The judiciary came up with a very strict guidelines, which laid down the guidelines for prevention of sexual harassment of women who are working. And this was the foundation of the law which followed. These were called, the name of Vishaka, because that lady's name was Vishaka. That's why they came to be known as Vishaka guidelines. So this basically, it says that we have to protect the fundamental rights of gender equality, rights to pursue any profession, and the right to live with dignity and pride. That's all our constitutional rights. Subsequently, in 2013, the law was enacted, which is called the Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace. It's a very unique law whereby any organization which has more than 10 people working with them, they have to compulsorily constitute an internal committee for investigation of any kind of sexual harassment against women. This was to give women a security to go work. You will be secured, encouraging women to please go to work. You are safe and secure. So that's how this committee was formed. There were people, the internal committee, there's a procedure, how do you, there's a time-bound method of investigating complaints, like within 90 days of an incident, what happens. Then there's an inquiry, then there's a decision, and then there's an appeal, the provision for an appeal. But this is totally for women at workplace. So any issue, whether you're on an offsite, whether you are at a party at somebody's house, who's your colleague, whether now, even if you're working from home during COVID time, because I was investigating several cases during COVID time, which also were very, very alarming, right? So how women have been, attacked in this manner. Thereafter, as a continuous education program for all entities and all companies, it is mandatory to have awareness campaigns throughout the year, like maybe 4 times in a year to all your staff, maybe where you have 1,000, 2,000, even if you have 10, 15 people, you are duty bound to do the mandatory awareness campaigns. So this is very, very peculiar to India per se, for preventing. This is purely for women. It's not for anybody else. Overseas, the laws are very gender neutral, and it is all laws to protect any kind of sexual harassment to anyone. But in India, this was specifically for women. Then just giving you an overview about our how the overcoming our gender equality. We have women in space now. We have women in agriculture, politics, in the legal field, finance, women in boardrooms, women entrepreneurs, women in manufacturing, women in pharmacies. So this is a whole view how India is changing now. Just to give you an overview of women in parliament. If you look at 1951, 1951-52, they were in the upper house of the parliament, there was only 6.94% women. In 22, it has risen to 13.80. And in the House of the People, that's the lower house, it was only 5%. In 60 years, it has risen to 14%. Now, to put an end to this, to put an end to women being oppressed or not encouraged to come forward, the government has, for the first time now in September 23, come up with a reservation for women in the parliament for the next 15 years. To encourage, for 15 years, there's a 1/3 reservation for women in the parliament. That means women will come on board. There will be women in the lower house, in the upper house, in the parliament, and things will change drastically because you'll see women leading a lot of decision making now. So that's a great thing which has come in. And this particular law, the constitution, it's a constitutional amendment. It has an expiry date. So it expired after 15 years. So it's not that the government says, it's going to be endless, women will have. So we presume, the government presume by 15 years, there will be an equality in women and men at the parliament. Just talking about how women are transforming in technology in agriculture. Just to give you an idea, we have an annual periodic labor force survey of 2022, which says the highest estimated female labor force is 62.9 in the agricultural sector. And in that, we have tea plantations around 47%, cotton cultivation around 46.84%, oil seeds 45.43%, and vegetable productions around 39%. So you will see, and you will also see over here this image of this lovely lady with who's controlling a drone, and she's in the village, and that's her farm. So now the government, what they're doing is they're encouraging women, because when you are spraying pesticides on your fields, instead of women, because this lands are being given to women so they can go in the afternoon, spray the pesticides. So now they are empowering these women to use drones in their fields to throw pesticides, and they're being trained. So now you will see a whole new different set of women farmers coming up now in India. And this is a commendable thing. Then coming to diversity in the boardroom, we have this picture just gives you an overview of the global perspective. If you look at in this map, this kind of blockchain, you'll see this. France has the maximum women representation on board. That's 44.5%, followed by Sweden, Norway, Canada, UK at 35.3%, Australia at 33.5%, United States at 28.1%, Singapore at 20.1%, India at 18%, Brazil at 13.7%, Japan at 11.5%, and Russia is the least at 8.9%. This just gives you an idea of, this is from an EY report, which was of last year. It gives you an overview of how women are represented on the boards, in the boardroom. So now to encourage women to come on the boardroom, India has come up with a new law. We essentially had an old law of companies law, which was there during the British era. That was replaced in 2013 by the New Companies Act. Now, in this New Companies Act, it is mandatory for any listed company, public company and listed companies, to have at least one woman director on the board. So it becomes an obligatory it's an obligation on the company to have one woman director. She could be an independent director or executive, non-executive director. And if you do not comply with that, there are penalties. There are penalties that financial penalties could be ranging from $600 to $6,000. Apart with them, they'll be if they don't comply, they'll be saddled with other provisions and penal provisions by the government. So this is a great move to get more women on board in India, and that's going to change the corporate world in India. And it is changing since 2013. And I'm throwing light over here on women and inheritance, which is something very important to see. So basically, if you look at land, whenever you were buying land, the properties was always purchased in the name of the male member. And what was happening in the case of divorces, women were losing out because the property, everything belonged to the husband. So the government has, to encourage women to hold properties, has levied reduced stamp duty. Stamp duty is a tax levied by the state government when you purchase a property. So the government is giving a reduced stamp rate to encourage more women to buy property. It essentially means the husband will buy property in his wife's name. So in that case, the women will own the property and it at least becomes an asset for her, as against the entire thing lying with the husband. So the tabular chart on the right over here, what you see, there are different states in India. In fact, there are 28 states. I've just listed like 9 of them over here. Like if there is a stamp duty rate in Haryana for males, it's 7%. For females, it is 5%. In Rajasthan, it is 5% for males, 4% for females. In Maharashtra, it is 6% for males, 5% for females. So you will see this difference. It's a lowered stamp duty for women. So this kind of encourages women to come and buy properties or even get properties on their name through their husbands, even if they're not earning, because it becomes an incentive. Even if you buy for like $1 billion, even $1 million, it's a lot of money for women, even in the urban cities now. Then we have something for our inheritance laws. We have this Hindu joint families, wherein if there was a joint family, after the demise of the father, the son would get the property and not the daughter. So this was adversely impacted because the girl child, the daughter, had no share. The woman would leave, suppose she got married and left her house and got married to her man, she would not get anything from her paternal side. I mean, her maternal side, she would get nothing because she's gone, she's wedded. That was this fundamental that when a woman gets married, you go to your husband's house and that's your life now. It's new life. Whereas that particular thing where women didn't have a right to have property in their ancestral properties, that has been changed by a 2005 amendment in the Hindu Succession Act, whereas the male and female now have equal rights in the properties. So they are equal co-partners. Co-partners are mentioned down to refer to a person who acquires a legal right to his ancestral property through birth in an HUF with a Hindu undivided family. So now everybody born into a Hindu family is automatically a co-partner, which was earlier not. Only a male was a co-partner. Now even a female is. This slide is just giving you an overview of women in law. So basically, if you look at women in law, we have 15% of women in law as compared to 85% men. So that is the divide in the legal profession. And if you just look on the other side, we have women in the judiciary. So in the judiciary, in the district court level, we have 11% women judges. In the high court, it comes down to 8% and much lower to 6% in the Supreme Court. So you've seen the gradual, as you go higher in the judiciary, the percentage has come down. But even then, it's a very, 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 very small percentage. It's just 6% in the Supreme Court and 8% in the high courts. So this is something, and this is as per 2020 National Judicial Data Grid that I pulled it out. And to overcome these instances and to encourage more and more women to come in law, we are now having bar associations coming up. In fact, it started with the Bombay Bar Association coming forward and encouraging reservation for women to come on board, like 5 women minimum to be on board of the Bar Association in Bombay. Following suit from the Bombay Bar Association, the Delhi Bar Association has started this. So this is something when one starts a movement, others will follow. So this is something we all need to work towards. And if we collectively work towards it, we will see a sea change in women in law, women in all fields in India. And as a closing remark, I am happy to draw the attention of this wonderful Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which says, as women achieve power, the barriers will fail. As society sees what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things, and we'll be better off for it. So it is something we all need to work on to get it. So if we support and promote women collectively, work towards the common goal, we will be able to change the world and make it a better place for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashu. Thank you so much. Yes, we'll do it. We can do it all together. So you gave us a very interesting overview about the different measures implemented in India to empower women in different sectors, and especially the protection of women against sexual harassment at the workplace, and the encouraging women in politics, which can lead them to participate in decision-making at the state level, which is something very important if we need to have legislation issued that can enhance and strengthen rights of women and their protection. Thank you so much for that. And now we have the pleasure of welcoming a leader in her bar and a leader of her bar. J'ai le plaisir d'accueillir maintenant une femme leader dans son barreau et leader de son barreau. Nous avons avec nous la bâtonnière du barreau du Congo central, notre consoeur Chéline Luzéju. Chéline, ce n'est pas la première fois que tu participes avec nous, mais à chaque fois ta participation nous apporte des éléments nouveaux concernant les droits des femmes. Et là, aujourd'hui également, tu vas nous parler de la situation des femmes dans la profession légale, legal profession au Congo. Chéline, tu es la bâtonnière donc, du barreau du Congo central depuis octobre 2021 et tu es avocate au barreau du Congo central depuis mai 2000. Tu es inscrite sur la liste des conseils de la Cour pénale internationale depuis 2012 et aussi sur la liste des représentants légaux des victimes devant la Cour pénale internationale depuis 2014. Également, tu es inscrite sur la liste des conseils de la Cour africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples depuis juillet 2022. Tu es membre de l'Association des femmes juristes congolaises du Congo central, membre du réseau de la lutte contre les violences sexuelles et basées sur le genre au Congo central, membre de l'Union internationale des avocats et du Comité des femmes de l'Union internationale des avocats, membre de l'Association internationale de droit pénal, cofondatrice et membre de l'Alliance internationale des femmes avocates, cofondatrice de l'Association du barreau auprès de la Cour pénale internationale, membre du réseau des avocats congolais du numérique et membre de l'Académie africaine de droit pénal international. Et je passe, n'est-ce pas, d'autres activités que tu as, c'est dire que tu es une femme très active. Alors, nous avons le plaisir de t'accueillir avec nous aujourd'hui, donc pour nous parler de la situation des femmes au travail, dans le monde du travail au Congo. Tu es la bienvenue et voilà la parole. Je te donne la parole. J'ai le plaisir de te donner la parole. On t'entend pas, il faut ouvrir ton micro. Chéline,
en mute.
ton micro, voilà.
Oui, c'est bon, merci, je l'avais encore en mute. Elisabeth, merci pour cette nouvelle opportunité de pouvoir discuter, de pouvoir en fait échanger avec des femmes qui sont dans la profession juridique. En fait, j'ai décidé pour ce 8 mars, pour ce mois de mars, de parler des femmes avocates, les défis, opportunités que les femmes avocates rencontrent et spécialement dans dans mon barreau. Mais avant ça, je me t'ai dit par rapport à mon texte, hein, je vais présenter une petite introduction qui sera suivie des généralités. Des généralités, c'est-à-dire essayer de brosser en quelques phrases la situation générale des femmes au travail, hein, pas nécessairement les femmes avocates. Et après ça, étant donné que mon intervention se base sur les avocates de mon barreau, je vais faire un bref aperçu de mon barreau, le barreau du Congo central. Il y aura un point sur les statistiques des femmes dans les milieux, dans les professions juridiques, c'est-à-dire les avocats ainsi que les magistrats. Et il y aura je parlerai des défis, des opportunités, et puis il y aura une petite conclusion à la fin. Alors, par rapport à la petite introduction, c'est que je peux dire, défis, opportunités, les difficultés, les défis que nous rencontrons en tant que femmes, c'est d'une certaine manière, pas nécessairement, mais d'une certaine manière lié au genre, c'est-à-dire la façon dont la société a décidé de voir le regard que la société a envers les femmes, envers les hommes, la façon dont la société a décidé de donner un rôle. Quel est le rôle de la femme? Quel est le rôle de l'homme? Et c'est ce qui fait qu'il y a des discriminations par rapport à ces rôles-là que la société donne à la femme et à l'homme. Alors, c'est partant de tout ça qu'il y a des discriminations qui font en sorte qu'aujourd'hui, les femmes se retrouvent, ils ont en face d'elles plusieurs défis, plusieurs préjugés, plusieurs discriminations simplement parce qu'elles sont femmes. Et ces discriminations-là impactent aussi le milieu professionnel de la femme. Alors, par rapport aux avocates, à toutes ces généralités, il s'est fait que dans notre pays, nous avons depuis 2008, parce qu'il fallait faire en sorte que les femmes puissent avoir une place de choix au niveau de la société. En 2008, il y a eu la création du ministère du genre et de la famille. Et ce ministère a pour autre rôle l'intégration des femmes dans la société, la prise en compte des femmes dans tous les domaines de la vie sociale, la vie culturelle, la vie professionnelle. Alors, par rapport à ce ministère-là, il y a eu plusieurs législations qui font en sorte que les femmes puissent atteindre une certaine égalité par rapport aux hommes. Parce que, en parlant du genre, vous allez vous rendre compte qu'au départ déjà, en Afrique spécialement, il y a eu beaucoup de coutumes, des pratiques coutumières qui ne permettent pas à la femme d'évoluer. Alors, par rapport à ces pratiques coutumières, par rapport à ces différents préjugés, par rapport à des stéréotypes, ces stéréotypes font qu'on essaye de caser la femme, je peux dire, dans un verre où elle ne peut pas sortir, où on lui dit, voici ce que tu es capable de faire et voilà ce que tu n'es pas capable de faire, alors que ce n'est pas ça. Et tout ça seulement, c'est parce que la femme est quelqu'un de sexe féminin. Donc, c'est vraiment des discriminations d'une manière générale qui est basée sur le genre par le fait que c'est des discriminations qui sont fondées sur le sexe. À la limite, c'est même le sexisme, si je peux me permettre. Alors, avec le ministère du genre, il y a eu beaucoup des sensibilisations, il y a eu beaucoup de plaidoyers par rapport à ce ministère du genre pour reconnaître le travail de la femme, les compétences de la femme, pour faire en sorte qu'on puisse aller au-delà du sexe et reconnaître les capacités, les compétences que quelqu'un peut avoir et non pas seulement réfléchir par rapport à son sexe. Une personne peut être un homme, une femme et regorger de beaucoup de potentialités. Et ces potentialités-là ne peuvent pas nécessairement être mis de côté simplement parce que la personne, c'est une femme. Alors, par rapport à ça, il y a eu des évolutions en ce qui concerne les lois dans notre pays. Nous avons l'article 14 de la Constitution qui, d'ailleurs, parle de la parité. Nous, au Congo, la parité est constitutionnelle. Alors, par rapport à cet article 14, il est dit, cet article-là dit, les pouvoirs publics veillent à l'élimination de toutes les formes de discrimination à l'égard de la femme et assurent la protection et veille à sa protection et à l'élimination de toutes les formes de discrimination, c'est-à-dire des discriminations sur le domaine culturel, sur le domaine civil, sur le domaine économique, social, sur tout le domaine. Et par rapport à ça aussi, il est dit que ce pouvoir public prenne des mesures pour lutter contre toute forme de violence faite à la femme. Alors, c'est-à-dire, par rapport à ça, on va se rendre compte que les bases ont été jetées, les bases légales ont été jetées parce qu'après ça, il y a eu une loi que nous appelons chez nous la loi de la parité, où effectivement, vous vous rendez compte qu'en termes de loi, il y a une certaine avancée, mais il y a toujours jusqu'à ces jours un problème d'applicabilité de ces lois. Vous allez vous rendre compte qu'il y a quand même des lois qui font en sorte qui veulent que la femme puisse être épanouie, mais lorsqu'il faut la matérialiser, il y a effectivement des problèmes. Alors, c'est ce qui fait que nous, les femmes au Congo, nous continuons dans la lutte, dans la sensibilisation aussi, dans la lutte pour qu'effectivement, toutes les lois là qui sont écrites puissent trouver une certaine matérialisation. C'est vrai qu'il y a vraiment des avancées, même en ce qui concerne le code de la famille, je ne le dis pas ici, mais même en ce qui concerne le code de la famille, même en ce qui concerne le code de travail, il y a des avancées, mais sur le plan de la matérialisation, vous allez vous rendre compte qu'il y a beaucoup d'épaissanteurs. Aujourd'hui, chez nous, à l'époque, une femme mariée était à moitié sous l'autorité de son mari parce qu'il y avait des actes qu'elle ne pouvait pas faire ou bien elle ne pouvait pas engager certaines choses sans obtenir l'autorisation de son mari. Aujourd'hui, l'autorisation du marital n'existe plus en ce qui concerne les femmes mariées. Parce qu'à un moment donné, c'était un frein. Pour un oui ou pour un non, un homme pouvait s'élever, un homme marié pouvait s'élever et aller jusque là où travaillait son épouse, dans l'entreprise de son épouse, pour dire que désormais, ma femme ne va plus travailler. Mais aujourd'hui, avec l'évolution, avec le fait que les femmes veulent être épanouies, veulent être considérées comme des personnes, des partenaires de développement, aujourd'hui, cette loi-là, elle n'existe plus. Cet article-là de loi a été aboli. Mais vous allez vous rendre compte qu'en ce qui concerne la matérialisation effective de toutes ces lois-là, qui sont prises dans le sens de faire en sorte que la femme puisse effectivement s'épanouir, il y a un véritable problème de matérialisation. Alors, en ce qui concerne, étant donné que j'avais dit que je vais parler des défis et opportunités par rapport à la profession d'avocate, là, je vais faire un bref aperçu par rapport à mon barreau. C'est le barreau du Congo central. Nous sommes en République démocratique du Congo et nous sommes à l'ouest de la République démocratique du Congo. C'est un barreau qui se situe sur la ville de Matadi. Nous sommes, le siège principal se trouve dans la ville de Matadi, qui se situe à 360 km de Kinshasa, la capitale. Et ce barreau a vu le jour, a été créé en 1982. Donc, c'est un barreau, c'est un jeune barreau parce que jusque-là, il n'y a que 42 ans, mais il faut retenir qu'aujourd'hui, ce barreau compte 1701 avocats et il y a 409 femmes. Donc, il y a encore beaucoup d'hommes. Les barreaux est à 70% ou à 80%. Ce barreau est masculin. Et en 42 ans, c'est seulement en 2022 que pour la première fois, il y a eu une femme qui a été élue comme bâtonnier. Donc, je suis la première femme élue bâtonnier et ce qu'il faut savoir qu'en République démocratique du Congo, je suis la deuxième femme, depuis que le Congo est Congo, je suis la deuxième femme à être élue bâtonnier. Alors, la première femme qui a été avocate de ce barreau, c'est en 1997. Le barreau a commencé en 1982, mais c'est seulement en 1997 que nous avons eu la première femme avocate de ce barreau. Alors, par rapport aux statistiques sur la représentativité des femmes dans les professions juridiques, là, je suis au mois de mars 2024. Au niveau du barreau, par exemple, vous allez vous rendre compte qu'il y a 24 bâtonniers en République démocratique du Congo en exercice. Il n'y a qu'une seule femme. Donc, je suis la seule femme alors que nous avons 24 bâtonniers. En ce qui concerne la magistrature, il y a 5504 magistrats au pays, mais il y a 1252 femmes. Et sur les 26 procureurs généraux en fonction, il n'y a qu'une seule femme qui est procureure générale. Ça veut dire que vous allez vous rendre compte qu'il y a quand même beaucoup de disparités. Et ces disparités-là font en sorte, c'est ce qui nous amène directement aux défis que rencontrent les femmes qui sont dans les professions juridiques et spécifiquement les femmes avocates. En termes de défis, par rapport au travail de la femme avocate, nous avons, j'ai eu à le dire au départ, nous avons les pratiques coutumières rétrogrades, hein, c'est-à-dire le fait que lorsque nous sommes nés, lorsque nous étions en train de grandir, on nous disait que la femme, en principe, elle n'a sa place qu'à la cuisine. Nous avons été éduqués d'une manière générale dans ce sens-là. Donc, il y avait un rôle, la femme, vraiment, c'est un rôle attaché à la famille. Elle n'est pas là pour des longues études. Et même nos mamans, quand elles allaient aux études, c'était pour faire des études des ménagères. C'était vraiment des études de couturières. Pourquoi? Parce que c'est la femme, c'est des études qui sont liées à la famille d'une manière générale. Et la femme n'avait pas le droit, ne pouvait pas prendre la parole devant les hommes, c'était une impolitesse. Alors, toutes ces pratiques coutumières, je ne dis pas que nos coutumes sont mauvaises, non, moi je suis très coutumière, mais il y a ces pratiques coutumières, des pratiques que nous appelons des pratiques rétrogrades, qui sont des réels défis aujourd'hui par rapport au développement de la femme qui veut travailler. Donc, on vous dit que quand l'homme et la femme sont en train de travailler, ils sortent le matin pour un quelconque boulot, mais au retour, l'homme se met devant la télé, il ne peut même pas aider la femme, mais la femme doit encore commencer à faire le ménage, à faire en sorte que qu'est-ce que l'homme doit manger, alors que l'homme aussi peut l'aider. Donc, tout ça, c'est des défis qui ne permettent pas à la femme qui est en train de travailler de se construire réellement une carrière. Vous allez vous rendre compte qu'à cause de ces pratiques, c'est-à-dire cette manière avec laquelle nous avons été éduqués, beaucoup de femmes arrêtent carrément le travail, surtout en ce qui concerne les femmes avocates, parce que nous sommes dans une profession libérale. C'est une profession où il y a beaucoup de challenges. Hein. C'est une profession qui demande beaucoup de temps, où il y a beaucoup de challenges. Et alors, quand on est, par exemple, dans une relation des mariages, ça devient plus compliqué. Pourquoi? Parce que l'homme s'est dit que moi, en tant qu'homme, je ne peux pas aider ma femme, quand bien même qu'elle travaille, quand nous rentrons à la maison. Ce qui fait que la femme, à un certain moment, cette femme qui travaille, à un certain moment, elle est dépassée. Alors, beaucoup de femmes arrêtent. C'est des défis. C'est ce que j'ai remarqué avec plusieurs femmes avocates. Et puis, nous avons aussi des discriminations légales et les manques d'application effective de loi. J'en ai parlé tout à l'heure. Et il y a aussi les stéréotypes. On vous dit que la femme, en principe, la femme qui travaille, c'est les femmes qui ont beaucoup étudié, c'est des femmes qui ne respectent pas les hommes, c'est des femmes qui ne sont pas des bonnes épouses, mais les gens ont cela dans leur tête. Et puis, à un moment donné, il y a des femmes, des avocates, qui préfèrent, dès qu'elles se marient, elles préfèrent arrêter. Pourquoi? Elles se disent qu'elles ne veulent pas être stigmatisées. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui disent, épouser une femme avocate à la maison, ça sera le code de la famille. À chaque fois qu'il y aura un problème, elle va sortir des codes. Donc, c'est ces genres de stéréotypes qui font que la femme avocate, à un moment donné, lorsqu'elle se marie, on ne le retrouve plus. On ne les retrouve plus. Ce sont des défis et on se demande pourquoi ces femmes-là arrêtent le travail. Il y en a qui ne supportent pas ce genre de stéréotypes. Il y a aussi les sexismes et les harcèlements. C'est-à-dire, vous allez vous rendre compte que j'ai dit que le barreau a commencé en 1982, que la première femme est devenue avocate en 1997, ce qui fait qu'aujourd'hui, il n'y a pas beaucoup de femmes qui ont des cabinets qui appartiennent à des femmes. Alors, quand ce sont les femmes qui veulent devenir des avocates, vont dans des cabinets des hommes, souvent c'est aussi des sexismes, il y a de harcèlement. Si tu veux que je te prenne dans mon cabinet, il faut nécessairement que nous puissions avoir une liaison. Donc c'est tout ça qui fait en sorte qu'à un moment donné, les femmes avocates arrêtent carrément parce qu'elles vont dans un premier cabinet, elles se retrouvent avec ces genres de problèmes, dans un deuxième cabinet, dans un troisième, et c'est des défis, et après, il y en a qui quittent carrément la profession. Et puis, la difficulté aussi de trouver des cabinets. Il n'y a pas beaucoup de femmes qui ont des cabinets. C'est comme ça que moi, je demande toujours aux femmes actuellement, celles qui peuvent, qu'elles puissent avoir des cabinets et embaucher beaucoup d'autres femmes. Moi, par exemple, dans mon cabinet, nous sommes 10 avocats, nous sommes 8 femmes. Je me dis, oui, les gens disent que tout ça, je me dis oui, parce qu'il faut que je prenne des femmes, parce qu'elles ont des difficultés à trouver des cabinets. Nous devons nous soutenir en tant que femmes. Alors, il y a aussi la paupérisation de la profession. Aujourd'hui, c'est des véritables défis avec la crise économique. L'avocat, en principe, c'est un riche qui vit derrière le riche. Mais aujourd'hui, il y a presque plus de riches. Il y a presque plus de riches. Ce qui fait que les avocates qui commencent, elles ont du mal à trouver des clients. Non seulement qu'elles ont du mal à trouver des clients, mais aussi que ces clients puissent les payer. C'est des difficultés qui font en sorte que certaines qui ne sont pas très fortes quittent la profession. Il y a aussi les manques d'estime de soi, les manques de confiance en soi. Nous avons fait les mêmes études, mais il y a de ces femmes qui ne comprennent pas qu'elles sont capables et qu'elles doivent, c'est une profession de challenge et qu'elles doivent se battre comme les hommes aussi. À un moment donné, elles arrêtent. Pourquoi? Parce que il y a une sorte de complexe. Et tout ça aussi, c'est ce qui fait que la femme, elle ne s'accepte pas. Elle n'estime pas, elle ne comprend pas qu'elle vaut quelque chose. Elle sait qu'elle est intelligente, mais elle a du mal à réaliser et à mettre en pratique les compétences qu'elle a. J'ai parlé de la maternité, la femme qui a des enfants en bas âge, c'est des véritables défis. Ici au Congo, nous n'avons pas de crèches et tout ça, ça fait en sorte que la femme avocate qui est appelée devant le cours des tribunaux, les dossiers, ce sont des challenges, ça demande beaucoup de temps de concentration, beaucoup d'études, il faut beaucoup lire la jurisprudence, la doctrine, ça prend beaucoup de temps et il faut aussi s'occuper des enfants. À un moment donné, ça devient compliqué pour certaines femmes. Il y a aussi les croyances religieuses qui disent que les avocats, ce sont des avocats du diable. Il y en a vraiment qui pensent que nous sommes des avocats du diable et nous, d'une manière générale, les Congolais, on est très croyants. Alors, par rapport à ça aussi, c'est des freins, c'est des défis qu'il faut relever, il faut dépasser ça, aller de l'avant. Alors, en termes d'opportunités, je me dis, c'est les femmes avocates, celles qui continuent à être avocates, le barreau, c'est des véritables opportunités, en ce sens que vous êtes considérés dans la société. L'avocat, ce n'est pas n'importe qui. Quand vous vous présentez que c'est une femme avocate, les gens vous respectent. Les gens savent que vous êtes dans une profession libérale. C'est encore une profession très masculine chez nous. Donc, directement, ils voient en vous quelqu'un qui est une femme qui est capable de se battre. Vous êtes capable de vous imposer. Donc, déjà, on dit de vous que vous n'êtes pas les gens des femmes qui dépendent totalement des hommes, mais vous êtes aussi en mesure d'apporter une pierre au développement, non pas seulement de votre famille, mais aussi de la société tout entière. Il y a aussi la numérisation du barreau et le télétravail qui aujourd'hui, c'est des véritables opportunités pour des femmes avocates. Surtout celles qui ont des enfants, elles peuvent travailler à partir de la maison parce que pratiquement aujourd'hui, tous les cabinets ont des groupes de travail sur Internet, des groupes WhatsApp. Vous êtes à la maison, vous pouvez discuter en groupe, tout ça, ça vous permet de rester à la maison, de travailler et en même temps de vous occuper de votre famille, surtout quand vous avez des enfants en bas âge. Il y a aussi le regroupage des femmes. Les femmes aujourd'hui dans mon barreau, les jeunes dames qui peuvent, sur le plan déontologique, déjà avoir de cabinet, se mettre ensemble pour former leur propre cabinet. Et puis, vous pouvez gérer votre temps, la gestion du temps, vous pouvez vous permettre de gérer vous-même votre temps parce que vous êtes dans une profession libérale, alors que les femmes qui sont sous contrat, ils sont obligés, ils ne sont pas libres de leur temps, mais la femme avocate, c'est des opportunités, vous pouvez gérer, et puis ça vous ouvre, le barreau, c'est des réseautages, ça vous ouvre des portes, vous pouvez avoir des dossiers qui viennent de loin, des confrères qui sont loin, qui vous contactent, tout ça. Donc, c'est un travail important, c'est un travail qui fait en sorte que chaque jour, on a envie de faire plus. Alors, c'est comme ça que pour conclure, j'ai dit que à ces jours, effectivement, le chemin est encore long, mais nous ne devons pas baisser le bras, nous ne devons pas baisser les bras, nous devons continuer à lutter pour effectivement nous-mêmes nous retrouver en tant que femmes et que les gens puissent comprendre effectivement que la femme vaut quelque chose. Pour terminer, je vais terminer avec une citation qui n'est pas de moi, qui dit naître femme en Afrique, terre de la prépondérance du patriarcat, des coutumes et des traditions archaïques, c'est un pas de mauvaise interprétation religieuse, n'est pas facile pour qu'on puisse reconnaître le droit des femmes. Mais c'est que nous devons savoir que n'être femme ne doit pas continuer à être vu comme un désavantage. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. C'était très intéressant aussi de t'entendre parler de ce qui se passe au Congo et en Afrique. Et là aussi, en général, il s'avère qu'on a besoin d'avoir des législations qui instaurent la parité dans le monde du travail. Et puis surtout que ces législations soient effectivement mises en application. Et dans le domaine de la profession d'avocat, tu as parlé aussi des défis, des challenges que les femmes avocates doivent relever, les combats qu'elles doivent mener pour pouvoir avancer dans leur carrière. Ce sont des problèmes qui existent partout dans tous les pays, mais ce qui est bien, c'est on en a discuté, on a échangé. Non, vous avez échangé chacun de vous avec les autres orateurs et avec ceux qui participent, les participants à ce webinaire, vos expériences personnelles, et ça aide beaucoup à faire évoluer notre compréhension des problèmes et à identifier les solutions sur lesquelles nous devons travailler pour faire avancer la situation des femmes dans le monde du travail. So I would like, we are now at the end of the webinar. It was really interesting to hear each one of you talking about the situation in your country, in specific sectors or in general. It's very important to listen to you talking about the challenges, but also about your recommendations, talking about how the situation of women is changing, but also what are the problems, what are the challenges that women have still to face everywhere. What's important about this webinar is that you identified some of the problems, some of the challenges, major challenges, but also we have your recommendations, and I think that's very important to identify the ways, the most efficient ways and indicated ways to address these challenges. I'm sure we will have to follow up on that, and we'll rely on you to participate with us in working on issuing maybe guidelines, as I said earlier, or some document regarding how to help women at work in advancing their careers and combating the challenges, mainly in the mentalities and especially in the legislation. And this, I think we can do it with the support of the Union Internationale des Avocats and the collective members of the Union Internationale des Avocats. Thank you so much for all of you. We're looking forward to seeing you in our next webinar, which will take place in September, but also in Paris at the annual Congress of the UIA, where we are going to talk about artificial intelligence and its impact on women's rights, how we can use algorithms or influence algorithms in order to end inequalities against women, and can we do it? So Tanya will be one of our speakers, and if any one of you would like to participate with us as a speaker in this working session, our working session in Paris, will be most welcome. Thank you so much again, and looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye to every one of you, and all the best.
Bye bye.
And thank you to Colette. Yeah, thank you to Colette, who was with us all the time, accompanying us. Merci beaucoup, Colette. And thank you to Jackie, who had to leave us, and to
Merci,
Nathalie.
Colette. And merci to everybody who was here with us.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.